In a world of wrestling podcasts, this is certainly the newest. Thomas Green and Prince Moxley Lopez give you Whacked Out Wrestling. Hello,
Dun, dun, dun.
hello, everybody. This is Whacked Out Wrestling. I'm Thomas S.K. Green, and with me, as always, is Prince Moxley Lopez, and we're going to be looking at the last week of pro wrestling, and hopefully, we won't have any mistakes like last time.
Learning curve.
Yep. And currently this week has been pretty hectic, but a bunch of things we can't talk about or won't talk about on this show because we want the positive aspects of wrestling.
I think we're going to try to just keep it in what's going on inside the ring and not there's a lot of stuff outside of the ring, but we're going to keep it the action inside the ring this week.
Yeah, the only thing that would have to be said outside the ring on it is rest in power, Matt Cappotelli, for your battle is finished. Can we get a fuck cancer?
Fuck cancer.
Mm-hmm. And that was really a thing where, even past the battle on this one, if he had made it to the main roster, he probably would have been great. I don't think it's a hot take to say that Johnny Jeter versus Matt Cappotelli in OVW was what Gargano Ciampa would have been if they both came up through in-house pro WWE developmental.
I agree with that. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And thoughts, if you do prayers and what have you to his wife, his family, his friends.
Mm-hmm.
He not only was he had so much potential as a wrestler, but actually a really, really good guy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always a shame when one of the good ones leaves too soon. Because God always takes the good ones from you too early, but he keeps the real assholes here for way too long.
Isn't that the truth?
Mm-hmm.
And as being kind of older, I don't take offense to that because I'm still consider myself young, even though I'm old as shit. But that's neither here nor there.
Yep. Well, it's not as how old you are; it's how young you feel.
Yeah. But that all I can say, fuck cancer. Yeah. Fuck everything about it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Though it is still the problem why we have to say fuck cancer. If anything deserves to be an incel, it's cancer. But let's go to the positives and go to Raw this week, or the Roman Reigns show, starring Roman Reigns and a bunch of jobbers players.
That's not completely fair. Roman got what was it, 4 segments? Somewhere I saw somebody timed out of the 3 hours of Raw, Roman was on there 49 minutes.
Yeah.
I forget where I saw that at.
It is kind of unfair to say it was totally the Roman Reigns show because at the last Raw I went to live on this one, it felt like Jason Jordan was on that show for over an hour and a half. It was way worse than Roman Reigns' segments. Not in the least because at least Roman Reigns is relatively talented and has some semblance of charisma, where Jason Jordan does not.
Damn charisma vacuum.
Yeah.
But I was more referring to the, not it being the Roman Reigns show, but calling some of the people, the jobbers.
Yep.
I mean,
well, it's basically the difference between. It's hard to say that they're the not ready for primetime players when we know that NXT would probably be that level, or 205 Live, and the stuff that they did this week was clearly ready for primetime. Why they have not put Buddy Murphy on Raw yet is just a crime. Give him at least 10 minutes and see what happens, and he'd probably help get 205 Live on the map with the casual fans.
I think, and we're gonna discuss 205 Live later. I think he actually kind of to some degree, did that this week.
Yeah.
When you on the map, your mileage may vary,
Yeah.
but
Well, at least
since
he ended on Twitter, so that's a good sign for getting on the map. So
right, and a lot of we just completely okay. Let's talk about Raw. Roman was on it. Now let's talk about 205 Live because Ali has a lot to do with that too.
yeah, but
But
at least,
I do go ahead.
Mhm. Well, really, the big problem with 205 Live is that it's basically been has been great TV, great wrestling, but there's just no character. And that's a reason why even when I hear that Mustafa Ali Buddy Murphy may be the Sami Zayn Cesaro match that truly put the show on the map and made it must watch TV, there's still that nagging point in me that says that the whole Drake Maverick era has been, hey, you have this gimmick. You should stop caring about this gimmick and be a wrestler. You're a really good wrestler. Say no more, fam. I am Drew Gulak. I am
Yeah,
a serious wrestler here to put on a good match with a man I deeply respect.
yeah. The one name I don't really want to bring up. The other, and this I never have dreams about wrestling, but I actually did last night. But the two characters, like true characters in 205 Live, have been Neville,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know where this came from in my dream, and I'm not going to elaborate on the dream itself. Just me and my son were watching wrestling, and whoever was champion, I couldn't even tell you who, did an open challenge, and Neville, his entrance came on the Titantron, and Neville made his return, won the championship, and everybody went ape shit. Neville and Enzo have been really the only. Everybody's had a, excuse me, not everybody. Some have had a shtick,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, and I like the Gulak and the sign holding and whatnot, like the. But that's not really a character. That's I don't know
Well,
how to.
even if it was, that's one of the reasons why it's great Mustafa Ali is at the forefront of this because his character was great. There's no better way to explain it than he's Muhammad Hassan if they went babyface with him, like everyone has been longing for 13 years. That is
Yeah,
a high praise there. Just going
right.
with the, I was a Muslim, I'm Arab American who had bigotry given to me at after 9/11, and I'm worried about the rest of the world. And then he's match in Chicago, and he's like, I stand corrected. I am sorry I doubted the WWE universe. I will fight for you guys forever now because you showed me this respect. I am deeply sorry.
That might have been the greatest. And again, we have a small sample size of 205 Live, but either Neville becoming king of the cruiserweights or Mustafa Ali cutting that promo, those are arguably 1A, 1B of the greatest things that ever happened to the current cruiserweight division.
You have no love for them going for 6 months on a feud that has had nothing because Vince McMahon thought it was funny how a Scottish person would say the word fox.
Dude, come on. What? Alicia Fox. Like,
It's,
no,
it's
that's
something that,
not, that's not, yeah, it was funny and,
yeah, but
but it wasn't changing anything. It was just, oh, we're waiting for him to say Alicia Fox.
yeah, it
Like,
was worse
okay,
than that. That they actually agreed the feud was over. Both guys said, I have no problem with you anymore. Me neither. The feud somehow continued another month.
Yeah,
Really,
that
WWE. If
that was
Cedric Alexander is bombing as champion, I put all the blame on that.
it just it's like one of those. That's like a sitcom where you're waiting for, like back, Dynamite, or like it's gonna happen, and you'll haha every time, but it wasn't like, ooh, here we go. This is like altering things a little bit.
Well, yeah, but that's always the point. When you're an ensemble show like WWE, and it's basically the closest thing to a great variety show out there, eventually you do need guys who are just, I'm a catchphrase. That's all I am. You're just going to do this one. You need your
Oh,
Lou, the guy who comes into the show and says his own and says his catchphrase over and over again.
absolutely. That I wasn't disputing that. Just
Yeah.
but it wasn't a turning point. Like, you absolutely need, and some people don't realize that you need that characters to, and it does kind of get stale, repetitive, grows old, but you do need that character and plural, characters to keep that shtick going, to keep
Well,
that catchphrase.
it basically goes to something that Duke had always told me when we fantasy book up together on these things, where gimmicks sell T-shirts, characters sell tickets, and that's always a big plus. But the difference is that you kind of need a gimmick to get developed and given TLC and given all this time to become more and become a character, and that's
Right.
why Mustafa Ali is so great. He had a kernel of a gimmick, and they nurtured it until it became a character.
Right.
So there is those pluses for it. And now it seems like they're starting to get more characters on the show. So at the very least, they have things like they're trying it with Leo Rush as a character. Aside from, wait, this guy's still employed by WWE. He didn't flame out yet, and things like that work. You have bonuses of people like T.J. Perkins trying to get a gimmick and move to Raw or SmackDown because he wants to enter the heavyweight division. And those are some interesting things. So there's a kernel of it where it seems like it's getting ready to be in the 2013 NXT era where something's happening here, but we don't quite know what it is yet. And
Right.
that's what you need to get to the thing that's going to change your life.
There's the rumbling. It's starting very quietly, but there's a rumbling that's about to, become more shattering or earthquake-ish, or however. And they're finally riding the ship, at least.
Mm-hmm. And
like,
that would really lead to the question mark of, do you put it on FS1 if they allow you to? Because right now it looks like NXT is going to FS1 alongside SmackDown, and if you put 205 Live on FS1 or FS2, you might have a chance of it succeeding and getting that otherworldly nature, or you might kill it and nip it in the bud and just make it clear that the average casual fan doesn't want that hard-hitting, pure wrestling style.
SmackDown's going to Fox proper, not FS1.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we know that SmackDown's going to Fox proper. That's been announced, but the whispers are that NXT's going to FS1. So.
Okay, I'm sorry. I may have misunderstood something you said.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's going to be a third show on FS1, whether it's NXT, 205 Live, or a standalone you know, kind of talk show-ish, or like the old, Saturday Night Main Event kind,
Mhm.
or maybe like Main Event. That's the only one that is separate now. You have Raw, SmackDown, and Main Event.
Mhm.
There's going to be something on FS1. We just don't know what. If it was NXT, I and there's rumors out there, but I think we would have already heard more of a confirmation to some degree than what we're hearing.
Well, NXT will be weird because for all the things that they say that the Performance Center is a money pit for WWE, you also know that NXT is the killer app for WWE
Yeah,
Network. That's the
that's
reason
why.
you sign up for the network. The back catalog's great, but if you want new product, it's NXT.
Yeah, and that has to be known, like a given. Uh,
Mhm.
the most popular thing for the WWE network is obviously the pay-per-views.
Mhm.
Main one. Second is NXT, and then you get into a 205 Live versus like the ride-alongs and the
Yeah.
documentaries.
Yeah. I think it would
But
go one, some pay per views, two, NXT, three, 205 Live, four, the back catalog, five, the shows like Ride Along on it, 100,000 on this one, Holy Foley.
oh God, that was so bad. Oh God, why must you remind me of?
If it happened and we let it happen.
Oh God. And I know it's not popular, but and I think I couldn't even tell you if I know they're coming out with a new season or it already came out, so I couldn't tell you which one. But I kind of like the Camp WWE, where they're all kids, the cartoon.
Well, at the very least, it's interesting on it because it's the best thing I could say about it is that I wouldn't see it as something you couldn't show on Adult Swim, and
Yeah,
that's not exactly a compliment, but it's not an insult either. It is perfectly acceptable as an adult cartoon.
right. And it so many underlying things on the first season with Triple H and Vince, and
Mhm.
it there's so much undertone. Like it actually makes it funny if you take it there and you look at what's actually happened. Like it works for me. I love it so much that I couldn't tell you if the second season's out yet or not. But
I think the second season's out, but yeah, it's
okay,
perfectly solid, and that's at least one of the pluses where the network's kind of gotten rid of all the failed experiments and focused on the shows that are perfectly solid, even pretty interesting. Like Photo Shoot, I had no expectations, but seeing it after Takeover Chicago, and this was a pretty interesting show. I have no problems with it.
I love their 24 documentaries, and I know they did their For Your Consideration for Emmys about it. Dude, their 24 documentaries are fantastically done.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the pluses where WWE knows how to make documentaries. We see it with the DVD releases they make. So
Yeah, I mean and so weighing, saying all that to weigh, I wouldn't cancel my subscription.
mhm.
If NXT was exclusive to FS1, because I still like, if they started putting pay-per-views on Fox, I don't have cable for one, so if they put pay-per-views on FS1, I'm screwed.
Yeah.
If they put NXT on FS1 and I had to wait a while for NXT, I'd probably still have my subscription. If they just took the pay-per-views off and put it, because some people were, thinking that way.
Hmm.
I think the latest rumor was WrestleMania being broadcast live on Fox.
Honestly, I don't know if that would work on this one because, on the one hand, if it's broadcast on Fox, they'd probably have to cut it down a bit. But on the other hand, if it was broadcast on Fox, they'd have to cut it down a bit. And if it was if those ones, the big thing that WrestleMania needs to be seen as is the Super Bowl of pro wrestling. And that's
Right.
a positive because on one hand, you're going to have the celebrities, you're going to have the part-timers. Those are part of it. But you also have to be able to know if it's WrestleMania. If you can look at the DVD in 2, 5, 10 years and know at a glance, okay, the people on this card mattered that year, then that's all you need for it.
Right.
And that's one of the pluses with the battle royals for both genders, that they can get everybody a payday on it. But on the main card, if you made the main card, that should be the sign that you had a year in that last year that was significant.
Right. And you and I, outside of podcasting, have talked about this before. It's regardless of winners, and this goes through the entire year. If you're on the main card of WrestleMania, like say WrestleMania 34,
Mhm.
that means from WrestleMania 33 to WrestleMania 34, in that time span, you mattered. They gave you stories. There was, or a story at least.
Yeah.
Not saying that wrestlers that didn't make it don't matter, just how they view or how it could be.
Well, there's also the case where just being significant on the show doesn't necessarily mean your year wasn't significant. Just
Right.
that there's still a level of the best on it. The best example from this year's card would be the tag team match. If it was just significance, it was a good three-way match between the Bludgeons, the Usos, and New Day to get the card. But you could at least make a case that Benjamin and Gable deserved to be in the match. You could make a case that the Ascension deserved to be in the match. God, the Fashion Police deserved to be in that match. Would it have added anything? Not really. It would have made the match a little bit too big, but all three of those teams had their moments in the last year, but none of them were just big enough to merit a WrestleMania match.
Right. You put it better than I did. That's what the Fashion Police had so much. The Fashion Files were the biggest hit, and then like they got relegated to just YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Not even on the show, YouTube clips.
Yep. Well,
Like
that's really the point where if you get over on these things on it, it goes between month to month and year to year for who had enough moments to merit a main card match. And that can go back to Raw for this one because it ties into, say, the Mojo Rawley No Way Jose feud, where if No Way Jose keeps trying to get a fight with Mojo Rawley and it pays off on a pay-per-view, that's a good honor for both guys that both guys would deserve. But if Mojo Rawley finally has to let No Way Jose get his hands on him at WrestleMania, fuck no! Neither of those guys deserves that. Maybe if you give Mojo the Intercontinental title, that would have a case. Keyword a case, but I sincerely doubt that would be a Mania match.
Even with Mojo winning the Andre a couple years ago
Mhm.
with the
Oh,
Rock.
you
But
mean when
that was
Rob Gronkowski's good friend won the
yeah.
Mojo? Yeah.
Even then, that's what I was gonna say. Even then, the focus was more on the celebrity than Mojo, and that was on the pre-show anyway.
Yeah.
But
And in
the focus,
retrospect, it was that also a bad move because if you just switch the two people in that match, suddenly Jinder Mahal's the Andre winner, and then everything about his push makes perfect sense. No one can deny that Jinder Mahal was on a hot streak, and that hot streak took him to the world title.
right?
Suddenly, that reign is pretty prominent.
Back to Raw.
Well, it's one of those things where the week of the show was one of those cases where, on the one hand, there was a lot of Roman in those ones, but let the record show they managed to make Dr. Shelby's segments insipid and not very good.
I, I and again, YouTube clips, but YouTube clips and other clips. And I was so I was I don't use the word disgusted lightly, but whenever Kurt last week, Bailey, you're going to counseling. What the fuck are we doing? And then later to find out after the show, like, oh, and Sasha, you're going to counseling too. Like, then it's a double face palm. Seriously, what the fuck are we doing?
Yeah, and it's
Like,
the worst part because it made sense they send both people to counseling, and yet for some reason it didn't work. I mean,
yeah,
with Team Hell No, it worked because you didn't expect Kane to also be in anger management there. Even with the Enzo and Cass go into counseling for a short thing on it, it had all those minor names on the show in counseling with them. Heck, they even got a fairly okay Rusev Jinder Mahal team for a couple months out of it. And really, that's all you can ask for on it. It's just the comedy comes from you're not supposed to expect both guys or girls to be in that same thing. It would have been better if they said Bailey and Sasha Banks are in counseling. They happen to see the Riot Squad there, and they say, "What? Kurt makes us come every week. Oh, you're the new ones. Nice to meet you." And it
yeah,
would have at least made it make sense because now you see that it's not just Bailey and Sasha in counseling; it's everybody in the show in counseling.
at the very, very least, if they want to run the Dr. Shelby thing again with the counseling, do it separately. Like a one-on-one, but together. It that was just uh, that felt very flat to me. Like it wasn't bad per se, just like all the time leading up to it, and then Bailey finally like, okay, I'm done with your shit, and I'm not going to be a pushover anymore. She didn't turn heel, but just out like, okay, you're going to counseling, you're going to counseling. Don't put them in counseling together. Like they could have done the exact same thing with well, when you think of Bailey, what, how does Bailey make you feel? One on one with Sasha, and let Sasha do the exact same thing. Vice versa with Sasha, how does Bailey make you feel? Tell me they could have done the exact same thing, but one on one, and it would have at least been somewhat better.
Mhm.
And then you get the comedy routine of maybe Dr. Shelby giggles a little bit because they said kind of here or there the same thing about each other, that kind of. But to put them together and it just
Well, it was also just the fact that when you're trying to remake the anger management segments for Team Hell No, you've got to remember that it wasn't just Kane and Daniel Bryan who made that segment. It wasn't just Dr. Shelby who made the segment. Heck, it wasn't just Harold being a puppy for him to kick that made the segment. It was just a chemical reaction because you need all those things to be in place to make it work. And this was just therapy sessions. And it made worse sense because if you look at the YouTube earlier on it, they made it a plot point that Shayna Baszler was backstage at Raw. And that would have made perfect sense. If they knew that, that would have been so much better for this. Because then you have Shayna Baszler attacks Bayley and Sasha. The Horsewoman versus Horsewoman feud has more heat on it. And suddenly Bayley and Sasha realize, I hate this bitch more than anything, but I have to team up with her again because it's my only hope to take these people out.
I don't like you, you don't like me, but we don't like her even more.
Yeah. And they almost had that with the Riot Squad going on, but the Riot Squad just aren't as good. They aren't as good at this one on it. And with the news that Ruby Riott got injured, you've taken away the only one who's truly assimilated and meshed of the group.
And you also have to, if we're doing the Team Hell No sessions versus Sasha and Bayley, Kane and Daniel just have. Kane is underrated for it, and Daniel just feeds off of it.
Mm-hmm.
Their comedic timing.
Yep.
And Sasha and Bayley, love them both. They don't have that. Words escape me, but they don't have that.
Have that comic timing that they would.
Yeah.
And that's it's really a problem on these ones because one thing that is the big weakness on the main roster is that there's fun and funny are two different things.
Right. Like, and this was neither one of them.
Yeah. Like, for instance, the New Day are funny, but Bayley and Sasha Banks both are just normal wrestlers who have a fun gimmick. They're not particularly funny in any way on it. It's just they're fun gimmicks, and that's all they are. And you don't need more than that to be a serious wrestler who's having a fun gimmick. Just like you don't need someone who's funny but isn't particularly fun for it to be a problem.
When the social media outside of what we actually saw on TV is more entertaining and like, ooh, she said this or she said that or she did this, is more entertaining than what we saw on TV, that's kind of a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but at the very least on it, even the social media is kind of gone through on it.
But that was kind of my point of that. What's kayfabe and everything, but when you're more interested in, oh snap, Sasha is doing this to Bayley, or Sasha said this about Bayley, or Bayley is, when that gets more of a reaction than what they're doing on TV, that presents a problem.
Yeah, especially since Sasha Banks' stuff on Bayley is what a bunch of mid-40s or mid-50s boardroom members would think shade sounds like.
Right.
And Bayley has changed her gimmick from happy-go-lucky, kind-hearted woman who's a friend to everyone to she really, really listens to Paramore a little too much.
Nice.
But that goes from that part, and from those two things that could have been funny except for injuries taking place, you have the continued story of when the B team actually gets their title shot with the Delete team. in this
But,
thing, at least it was an injury for it. And
by the way, get well soon,
yep,
Ruby Riott.
yep. No, this was Bray Wyatt who
Yeah,
got
I was
get well
talking.
soon for Ruby Riott, and hopefully the Buzzards can fix him, or he's sent into the lake of reincarnation, and he comes back at full power.
Yeah, sorry, that's bad.
Yeah.
Bad man, Harvey.
But then we have more of this question where we have this continued story of one of the most unlikely returns to power, where people thought they were complete losers, had nothing, and somehow they managed to become good again just by going completely crazy. And I speak, of course, of Curtis Axel.
And this, it reminds me so much, but done in such a better way, better timing. The Social Outcast.
Yep. Well, the
It,
Social Outcasts always felt like they wanted to be the New Day. They really had the urge to be the New Day, but they just didn't have the New Day's chemistry. They didn't have the New Day's sense of humor. It just fell flat on it.
but
And
the B team
says
worked.
something that of all the people who've survived, they ended up getting that comic timing. Now Heath Slater and Axel and Dallas are actually pretty fun and funny acts on the show.
I hope this isn't one of those, spoiler alert, Bray and Bo are actually brothers and they're feuding and tag teams against each other.
Well, honestly,
I like the B team,
yeah.
but I hope that it's not just Bo impersonating, the Bo impersonating Bray and Curtis impersonating Matt. Like, I hope it goes beyond that because I actually like what they're doing. I just hope it's not pigeonholed or like, okay, we're just using you at this moment, for this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just weird because at the same time, Axel and Dallas, it's weird because you know that Dallas and Bray probably wanted to wrestle each other once or so for it, but the window was between Bray Wyatt, the face of fear, the ultimate evil, and Bo Dallas, the super positive believer, was one where that feud would have been perfect for each other, but Bo Dallas was nowhere near playing Bray Wyatt's sport, much less being in his league at the time.
Oh no, that would have never worked.
Yeah. It's a shame because that matchup probably would have worked, but the feud, you don't have that one. That would be like LeBron James playing Lance Stevenson until they became teammates.
Oh shit. You went there.
Yep. Well, it had to because they had, for your consideration, LeBron James was thrown off a thing in a porta potty and thrown off where he got covered by blue poop. It was insane. Oh wait, that was Braun Strowman and Kevin Owens. My mistake. This is the problem with WWE making that was poor.
I get, at least this time it wasn't like 6 months later. Like,
yeah.
What the hell was with after all the, I'm old, I call them pound signs, but hashtags, and after it was insane. Like, what the hell? Like, if you're gonna mimic or gimmick or parody like the LeBron James thing, what was up with the it was insane part at the very bottom?
Yeah, that was just weird on it. And at least it was something where they could have had worse on these things. Like they could have parodied the DeMarcus Cousins situation and had AJ Styles decide he wanted to win the the Intercontinental title on Raw instead, and so he decided to be a mid Carter there.
So many directions, and again, somewhere I can't remember if it was Twitter or somebody compared it to WWE always putting shit on the back of their shirts. Like, you had it pretty good, and then you did this. Like, it was. What's funny is a lot of people, I guess, wrestling fans, WWE fans, don't keep up with basketball, and they didn't get that it was a parody of what just came out, the day before.
Yeah, but of course they should be caring about basketball. I mean, he's joining the Lakers, the team that beat the Nuggets on Raw in 2009.
Right. I'm a jackass.
Hey, basketball may not hold grudges, but fans can. It's for bad booking.
The greatest thing I've seen, and again, I can't remember where, was about how scripted basketball and wrestling were. And it wasn't just your typical, like, they're both fake, they're both scripted. Like, this was an in-depth analogy of how they're both scripted.
Well, it's not even just they're both scripted, but if you think of a lot of things, there's a lot of comparisons between basketball and pro wrestling. I mean, in both sports, the best players are the ones who make their teammates or their opponents better, not the ones who can do the best themselves. In both sports, if you have one otherworldly talent, you can have a career for as long as you want to.
Yeah, that's what like this went in depth of, because it was very spot on. Like, it wasn't just a snide remark, like a one sentence quip or something. It was like, oh, yeah, I'm still nodding my head like, yep, that's sounds about right.
Yep. And really, that's one of the pluses of wrestling on it, where it just goes through. But this was just an example where they tried to be timely, and it just bit them in the ass. And that's really a common thing for WWE.
Right.
So having said that, this porta potty shot was kind of cool.
And it was. It served its purpose, and I could nitpick it of why didn't he just flip him over outside, or why if he was in a porta potty and it supposedly all the poop and stuff, why was there blue liquid coming out? But I was
assuming that, considering that she has a blue tongue as part of her gimmick, Liv Morgan used it just beforehand, and she was the last person.
Oh my damn! You're wrong for that, dude.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
That's not right.
Well, inquiring minds need to know that Liv Morgan has blue blood, or blue bodily functions. We see it from the tongue. It must be part of the gimmick in kayfabe.
Smurf.
Well, actually, it would make sense if she was the Smurfette one. A random person who was engineered to be an object of desire on these things and isn't really useful on the show.
Oh my damn! Wow.
Well, at least you did get to assimilate on these things, which is the problem with the Riot Squad injury, where all you have left is the worst of the three workers in Liv Morgan and the leader of the gay meat community in Sarah Logan, who will probably never live that line down in her career.
Um, 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 what else happened on Raw?
Honestly, nothing much for it. Nia Jax got to fight Alexa Bliss. Constable Corbin has ran afoul of Finn Balor, and Titus Worldwide finally got their hands on the Authors of Pain. Spoiler alert: it did not go well.
I saw earlier they made Balor versus Corbin official for Extreme Rules.
Yeah, and that should be a straightforward match. I mean, Corbin can go when he's against good performers. So
yeah, it'll be a good match, and I like how they're pitting Balor against bigger opponents.
Yeah,
to show that he's, because you get so much stuff of he's so small, he's so tiny, he can't do.
well, yeah, because anytime that a guy who's under 205 live is in the heavyweight division, you're going to have that ones. So they have to find some way to do it. And really, if you're going to do that one, it's time to think about making Finn Balor the guy who works on 205 and on the main roster as well. Show that the heavyweights who would also like to be cruiserweight champion as well if they can qualify.
See, that's where you and I will disagree because just based on since 205 Live has been a thing, once you go in, you never come back.
Yeah, and that's really the problem on it, because at the same time, there's always this feeling that people say, what do you want from 205 Live? We want some stars. Okay, let's move Finn Balor, Xavier Woods there. No, don't do that. 205's beneath them. Okay, then
right.
Let's rehire Rey Mysterio. No, he can't. It's beneath him. And then you say, okay, let's move Gargano and Ciampa. No, it's beneath them. So what do you want? We want stars.
Right. It's a double-edged sword.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's really the point where if there's one big problem that needs to be said, people aren't willing to murder their darlings anymore. And once in a while, you need to murder a darling or two to get someone you like more up on it. And that really ties into SmackDown, because they basically did that by moving Daniel Bryan into the tag team division so they could go all in with Rusev Day.
If they would let, on one hand, I appreciate that a long time ago when they were doing cost cutting, I appreciated like the purple ropes daring Raw, because everybody would like that was their bathroom break and go get a beer or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But they quit doing that, and then for the last few months, like there hasn't been any 205 Live. Okay, you're separating it.
Yeah.
If they would cross, like, okay, I'm 205 Live, but I'm still a WWE superstar. If they would cross paths, and I want this to happen with the women and men too, not necessarily intergender matches, just like you're in the same world, don't act like you both don't exist, in the same world.
Yeah. Well, it's not even just the 205 Live ones. It just has problems with storylines for him, like, for instance, with Buddy Murphy, who's breaking out on 205 Live. They've made his character, he's a great performer, he's one of the best on the show, but he struggles to make weight because he had to lose so much weight. If they made it a plot point that Kurt Angle and Paige are both saying, don't cut weight, sign with us, you can leave 205 Live, you'll be a white-hot superstar, and you won't have to cut weight anymore, suddenly you've made Buddy Murphy seem like a bigger star that they want on Raw or SmackDown, but he chooses to be on 205 Live, even if it gives him a weakness.
And that also opens avenues, doors to, even if he chooses to stay on 205 Live, you're opening the potential of somebody else like, hey, even if they are 205 or less,
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, if he's being offered and he doesn't want, what about me?
Yeah. And that would work with TJP's angle right now, where he wants off of 205 Live. So.
I don't like the pigeonhole. You're stuck here
Yeah.
kind of aspect of it. Like
Mm-hmm.
I would really like one of the open challenges for whatever title, and somebody that, we're speaking of 205 Live, so let's speak of somebody from that to be the challenger.
Yeah.
Like just show up and like
Mm-hmm.
kind of when KO came up to John Cena's U.S. Open challenge.
Yeah. And that was one of the best things about the challenge. Heck, the open challenge being answered by someone no one expected made
Yeah,
fans actually excited for Alberto Del Rio for once in their life. That should say that a surprise and challenger works.
oh god. But I hate to say it, but I agree. I hate. But yeah, it was a surprise.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that it wasn't like a surprise to anybody. Like, oh my god. There
Yeah.
might be some people, but like these open challenges, and that's like I was saying earlier about, I don't ever have dreams about wrestling, but and I forget, and it was either the Universal or WWE champion. Issue anybody in the back, open challenge, and Neville came out.
Mm-hmm.
Not just a return, but Neville was last seen on 205 Live.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is one of those things, and it would make us a good one just to have some mergers, and that ties into the SmackDown one of the Ellsworth versus Asuka match being sold because if nothing else, James Ellsworth being back isn't just he's a good guy, and it's the first showing that WWE is doing right by the talent in order to after they got all this money in the TV deal, but also just the fact that Ellsworth's a really valuable person to try and bring that intergender thing on. Because
Yeah,
maybe it doesn't have to be intergender all the time, but what if Asuka accepted Jeff Hardy's challenge for the US title?
see, and I think we're at a point where it wouldn't be like a China versus Jeff Jarrett.
Well, yeah, because at the same time on it, the big difference between when WWF did intergender when WCW did it was with WCW, they at least tried to make it seem like the women are talented enough to compete with the cruiserweight. With
Right.
WWF, it was basically China's a freak of nature and that's why she can perform with them. But now we're at the point where women all along are seen as talented enough. So there is the question, can they compete with the men on their talent?
Yeah, exactly. And it wouldn't be seen as a. Some people might, but I don't think it would be seen. Say, girl, Charlotte, Sasha, Becky, Ronda. If a man was holding a mid card title,
Mm-hmm.
anybody in the back, come on.
Mm-hmm.
and they answer the challenge and won it. I don't see it being that far fetched. Now, what
Yeah.
they do afterward and how they go about that's where some worry lies. But
Well, yeah. But at the very least, it seems like it's possible on this one. And that may actually give James Ellsworth some value, even if the joke is pretty much over right now on it, because James Ellsworth, you can buy him against heavyweight competitors. You can buy him against cruiserweight competitors. You can buy him against the women. There is no one on the roster that you could not buy being able to fight James Ellsworth. And that in itself has some value to him.
oh yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. And that also would tie the question where even if part of me thinks that the end game of Extreme Rules is going to be James Ellsworth wins the women's title by pinning Asuka instead of Carmella, there's still some value on it. And I'm dreading that. I think that's going to be what happens, but it is what it is.
No, now you kind of lost me.
For some reason, it just seems like it's kind of due for two partners are fighting for the title on this one. The other partner who isn't the champion pins one of them, and that gives them the title angle. And it just seemed my guts telling me for some reason I could see that happening with Ellsworth and Carmella.
Where you lose me at is they don't call it like the men's heavyweight championship or the men's intercontinental championship or the men's United States. Where you lose me at is women's championship.
Well, honestly, it's beyond those ones for women's championship for it, where the one thing I've always been steadfast on in this one is that I believe that they're doing well with the women's title. They're trying to make it equal, but they just have to give it that one word. They've never once declared a women's title the World Women's Championship. And
Right.
until they declare it a world title, it'll never truly be equal to the WWE Universal or WWE title. You've got to make it possible for a woman to be a world champion.
And I'm trying to follow your train of thought. I see where you're going, but I'm still gonna. There's a even if they, world's women heavyweight championship. There's a difference in like the first ever women's Money in the Bank briefcase and James Ellsworth grabbing it and throwing it down to Carmella versus James Ellsworth being world women's heavyweight champion like that.
Well, like I said, it's not that I want it to happen. This is like when people like TM say that Becky Lynch shouldn't turn heel or Bayley shouldn't turn heel, and be saying that I think they turn heel in the Horsewomen versus Horsewomen feud. That's not me supporting that or being a proponent of it. That's me resigned to the fact that this is going to happen. I don't want James Ellsworth as women's champion, but for some reason, I just dread the fact that this part in my pit of my stomach just thinks they're gonna do it, aren't they?
I don't think so. Like not that far. That's going a bit too, even for wrestling, like out of the realm of. Like no. A lot of this might be me, like, please, dear God, no.
Mm-hmm.
For all wrestling gods, please don't.
Yeah.
Please don't do that.
Yeah, and that's really the problem because this is one of those angles where it's they wouldn't. Oh crap! It's Vince McMahon. He totally would.
Mm, we're gonna have to agree to disagree because I
Yeah,
know
let's
that.
get to something that's actually easier to go with instead of something that would make every women's wrestling fan shudder from it, and get to something where only a few women's wrestling fans would shudder, as Becky Lynch defeats Peyton Royce on this one. And this is a big match because it keeps Becky Lynch on her hot streak, which is seen by her great record on this one. So of course she's totally being buried because she's not holding a title with a pretty loose thing with her logo on it and everything.
By the way, we just jumped from Raw to SmackDown. That's cool with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate Becky on a winning streak. And for those that don't know, I like Becky. I like half of the Iconic Duo. Like, I like them, but Peyton
Yeah.
more so than Billy Kay.
Well, it's actually kind of the weird thing with the Iconic Duo, where the two things I've noticed is that one, for some reason, if you like the Iconic Duo, they're your favorite act on the show. If you hate the Iconic Duo, you despise them. You can't stand any of it. And it's almost weird that for the people who like the Iconic Duo and versus dislike it, they prefer Billy to Peyton for some reason. Shout out Metal Matt.
Yeah, that's where and I guess it's lack of, I don't know how to, like, okay, they're booking Becky right,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, on the other hand, they're booking, they had their debut and beat up Charlotte, and that's how Bella got the championship, and they won a tag team match. Have they won a match since?
Well, in defense with the Iconics, it's kind of weird because they're basically comedy heels on this one.
Yeah,
They're
and
basically the comedy heels who just show up, can get clobbered and clobbered and clobbered, and they're going to get their heat back on the sticks. So that's actually a pretty valuable part of the show. Comparing it to last year when you had to deal with the heel jobbers being people like Tamina, people like Lana, people
oh
who had
yeah, I wasn't trying to drag them through the mud that
yeah.
much, but
Well,
it
yeah, but it's a much better thing when you have people who can safely lose and still keep their heat, as opposed to
oh
people who are just absolutely worthless in the ring.
and that speaks volumes
Mm-hmm.
to the ability to, and Becky is like the poster child
Mm-hmm.
of shit on me all you want for a year. The crowd's still gonna pop every time I come out.
Yeah, and that's really the plus on it, because with Becky it was just a victim of timing, because yes, Becky Lynch is a great women's wrestler who deserves to be the face of the SmackDown women. So does Naomi. So does Charlotte. But they can't all be the champion.
Charlotte deserves to be the heel of the SmackDown.
Well, it's kind of weird on this one because Charlotte, I would say the worst thing on this one was that they turned her face for no reason. The welcoming committee angle destroyed the show.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you're going to turn her face, there's not really any good heels to turn her against on it. And really,
I know people will say, like, oh well, Rick was going through this, but the face turn actually happened before.
Yeah, it happened after
that.
The shakeup.
Yeah, like that she came like face already.
Mm-hmm.
It was, but that would be an argument had. Well, Rick was in bad health and people supported her, and then Rick showed up, after his bad health, and no,
Well,
she turned.
people want to accept that as the face turn because she won the title and she was back at the front of it instead of the welcoming committee angle, which I don't care. I'll say it's right on here. I truly believe them destroying Charlotte's overness when she was the biggest star on Raw for 6 to 8 months since the draft to prop up Tamina, literally the worst person on the roster. That was sexism. I don't care. I'll come right out and say it. That was a sexist move by WWE. They literally derailed the best wrestler they had to prop up the worst wrestler. Even with the Jinder Mahal push, they didn't destroy AJ Styles to make James Ellsworth a huge star in the division, or they didn't destroy John Cena to prop up Dolph Ziggler.
I'm kind of confused if we're talking about Charlotte and Tamina.
Mm-hmm.
And you use the word sexism.
Well, like I said, do you think that they would do for the men destroy the best wrestler on the roster,
okay.
to prop up the worst man on the roster?
No, absolutely not.
And that's where I say it is.
Now I'm following
you get 1 year at the top and that's it. You had your year at the top. Now it's Alexa Bliss's time.
I'm more following you than I was. Wait a minute. Is that how sexism works?
Yeah.
But I see kind of what you're saying. I would maybe relabel it as favoritism than sexism, but that's mine.
Well, like I said, it just goes to something where it just ties into the firm belief that, like I had said in one of the few Cage Sides articles that actually hit on this one, where there's this unsavory feeling that with women wrestlers, they get 1 year at the top and that's it. And that's the one plus with Charlotte or Alexa Bliss getting to stay stars now and being big stars on it, where they aren't just kicked to the curb after they have their 1 year at the top. And that's a good thing.
Overall it is, and I know on both sides of that fence, because I'm on one side, I'm actually now on both sides. At least it's something. It's not like, here's your little run and we're going to go this direction and, who are you? Like, at least there's that inkling of, we're going to stick with this. And I know I have my signature from 3 years ago, but even I've said, like, they've gone a little too far with Alexa, even more than a little.
Yeah, but this has gone past. Alexa's gone a little too far too. Alexa Bliss is booked like how a fantasy booker would book the woman he's obsessed with in the company on this one. Not just they win all the time, but they win and outclass everyone all the time.
Yeah, see, that's my biggest problem with Alexa is that, and I think it was Des Moines, Matt DSM, that put it like, you were okay. At least Mela plays the chicken shit hill and is scared and is the underdog and just figures out a way. Alexa doesn't. Alexa always comes out looking stronger.
Yeah, and that's really the problem, because it just reared its ugly head during the Nia Jax feud, because, again, it boils down to Nia Jax is literally 3 times Alexa Bliss's size. I would not buy Alexa having a shot with her if she had a machine gun. She would need to bring a piece of kryptonite to the ring. And even then, I'd assume Nia Jax would tan herself to the glow of it. So really, it goes to those ones, and that ties to the actual match on Raw. But continuing with SmackDown, you have the biggest thing, of course, would be the first Team Hell No match in in years for it, and again, it boils down to the fans accepted their darling being murdered here for the greater good of Rusev.
Yeah, that. Uh, the outcome was. We're talking about the tag match.
Yeah.
Okay, I get what's going on behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
I've said nobody. I say nobody. There's been no reports of has he resigned, has he not? Do we know for sure? I get where they're going with what they're doing with him, but then you get the same reports of dream matches.
Mm-hmm.
Reuniting Team Hell No
Mm-hmm.
is a nostalgia thing from 5 years ago, but it's not a dream match, if you, per se.
Well, it's weird because at the very least, I could at least buy Team Hell No versus Usos or Team Hell No versus the New Day being a dream match for them, but it still seems like this is the type of thing you do where if I'm going to go with a conspiracy theory, and stop me if I sound like certain people on these ones for it, I think Daniel Bryan's already re-signed. I think that the WWE said, we'll clear you again if you re-sign with us on this one. And they're not saying that he's completely re-signed yet, because this way, if he's re-signed, people will accept, well, okay, I guess he can't make him the main event guy until you have his pen to paper. So we can buy you not going with Miz versus Daniel Bryan. We can buy him not being the WWE champion right now. We'll allow you to book him like this. But that won't work come September, because if come September, either Daniel Bryan's not re-signed or everyone will know Bryan re-signed.
Right. You and I, outside of earshot, you and I have talked about this, and I feel the same. And I said last night or the day before, either on a live podcast or just chit chatting, the most kept secret since AJ showed up at the Royal Rumble would be Daniel re-signing. And I just have a feeling, like with your gut feeling with Ellsworth, I have a gut feeling he has resigned, but you're not going to make it known. You're not leaking it to anybody. It's not going to be, and that kudos to Brie if she knows and has kept it quiet, which she knows how the business works, like she's in the business.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's re-signed, and they're, I mean, in a smaller spectrum, Gargano versus Ciampa, loser leaves NXT. Everybody just knew Gargano's going to lose and go to the main roster.
Mm-hmm.
How'd that turn out?
Yeah, but that was also the case where, like, that's why DIY's feud has exploded, because everybody knew DIY was going to lose and get called up to the main roster, and then they did that, and everybody was completely shocked.
And that's and I'll, if you don't mind, I will paraphrase a little bit of when you and I have talked privately.
Mhm.
Things sometimes are so big, you keep them vested. You don't let anybody know,
Yeah,
and not one person, and maybe the one person like Bree, your wife, like, hey, I resigned, but you hush your mouth. Don't say anything. Don't let on to anything. This would be that time.
yeah, yeah. Because my gut tells me that, and they did this with Miz before, right after the promo on it, where you had Miz versus Dolph Ziggler at Backlash, and there was that hint that Ziggler's contract may have expired. He may actually lose the career versus threatening match here on it because he's leaving the company. And then he won the title, and people said, "Oh, that was bullshit. He re-signed on this one. No big deal." And I
And
think
then it comes,
that's what my gut's telling me. They're planning
then
Miz
it
versus Daniel Bryan at SummerSlam, and it's going to be a career-threatening match for Bryan. And when Bryan wins, he's everyone knows he's re-signed.
right. Then it comes right back out after that that apparently Dolph still hasn't resigned.
Well, yeah,
Like
because
I,
it's it's the
I
exact opposite for Daniel Bryan for that. Because with Dolph Ziggler, it's he's the Intercontinental Champion. He hasn't re-signed on this one. What a jerk! That guy doesn't deserve to be the champion. He doesn't deserve to have taken the belt from Seth Rollins on it. And it works to make Ziggler more of a heel than he would be if he just won the title in a random match. But with Bryan, it's basically now you keep that one and use the fact he hasn't signed to use the question: will he beat Miz? Will they get to do this? Will he
right.
finally get Miz getting his comeuppance for that talking smack promo? But
And
other than
see,
that, it
so
just
many different directions they could tell the story.
mhm.
And the latest rumors, um, Miz is going to interfere in the Team Hell No tag match, which leads to their SummerSlam thing.
Yeah. But
But
even if it's
for,
still a case where Daniel Bryan has to have re-signed, and he has to have re-signed for one reason, because I'm not sure how time zones work, but if I'm not mistaken, at 11 p.m. Central Standard Time in Chicago, Illinois, on September 1st, Daniel Bryan could show up at All In.
no, because he still has the non compete clause.
Not if your contract expires.
No, even then.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that one because I know that the fact his
No,
contract expires, why the Dudleys were able to show up in TNA after the clause on it, and the no complete clause is actually them saying you're going to be fired in 3 months. Prepare yourself on it. You can have your last 3 months' salary, or we'll let you go today. And that's why Raven was able to show up in TNA because he said, "Nah, I'd rather have this. I'd rather have this work now. So just let me go today."
that's why they rewarded it. That's why, like Emma, um, Summer Rae, it's rewarded as far as my understanding. And again, this is the greatest and also at the same time worst thing because we don't actually know. We just tidbits here and there.
Well, that's
From my
all of wrestling. We speculate
well,
on
that yeah, but the most mysterious thing are contracts. Not
it.
just the non-compete clause, but the actual pay. That there, it's never really been divulged, and so a few months ago, maybe a year ago, like that is the most fascinating part left of wrestling, specifically the WWE part of we don't know. But
Yeah.
to my understanding, even if the contract expires, Daniel can't show up at All In.
Yeah, and that's really the weirdest question because usually if your contract expires, it's like, okay, you did your contract, you're free to go, do what you will, and that's really the reason that the Brock Lesnar push is going because at the same time, I'd say that Daniel Bryan has re-signed. I still think that Brock Lesnar has not re-signed. He's being held hostage by this contract. That's why he was so pissed at WrestleMania because he knows that it's not this. He's broke CM Punk's record, which was an arbitrary record and didn't matter on it. No,
Right.
he's going to break Hogan's record. He's going to break Bruno's record. He will die as champion because Vince knows he has that loophole that says as long as you're champion, you're under contract. If you want to go to UFC, fine, I'll just keep you as champion forever.
Please God, no.
Mm-hmm.
Please.
If they were going to do that, just make him forever champion, like they do in Japan sometimes, where they retire a belt for one guy.
Just retire him and the belt altogether and bring. Please God, no.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and that's really the problem with it, where they've already ruined Roman Reigns completely for it to keep Brock Lesnar around. How many more will they ruin?
They haven't really. I know what you're saying, but they haven't really ruined Reigns.
Well, it just goes down to if you lose a match, you're not buried. No matter how much your stands will think you're buried, you're not buried if you lose a match. If you lose enough that you're a loser, you're not really buried because every loser wins. Every dog has their day, and eventually there's a chance you can get that triumph and it'll be more satisfying. But once you're a choker, you are absolutely done. There is no coming back from that. It's the same reason that Bayley was ruined at Great Balls of Fire. On her wrestling epitaph will be she didn't use the kendo stick against Alexa Bliss. She choked in the clutch.
Yeah, that's kind of, you bring up valid points, but that's to some degree that there's a difference on Bayley not using the kendo stick versus like just flat out.
Well, I think it's more similar to Ember Moon versus Asuka, where they keep selling for years. Roman Reigns is the one who has the chance to beat Brock Lesnar. The one. The only one. No one else but Roman has a chance against this guy. And they make it Roman's point. I'm going to beat Brock Lesnar. I'm going to be the one to topple this guy. And then he gets his chance, and he loses miserably.
And see, I don't know where they've got to do something, and they've got to do something pretty quick to right the ship. And not Roman per se, just Brock and the Universal Championship. Like, it just it's so agonizing to watch a 3-hour show and know there's this outlying problem of it devalues like the whole show basically. Like,
Yeah.
Okay, and it's been said time and time again, the IC Championship is the main belt on Raw, which I mean you have to agree with because there is no Universal Championship.
Yeah. And incidentally, it's made it so Seth Rollins has a case where he could possibly be the ace of the company. So they have that as well.
It's just, and this is for a few years, even before the Universal Championship was introduced. Put Brock on I mean, he's a part-timer already, but like literally make him an attraction without a belt. like they do with Taker. Like just, hey, Brock's gonna be here for WrestleMania. Woohoo! Or Brock's gonna be here for SummerSlam. Woohoo! But don't. It shouldn't be the. There's a missing focal point.
Yeah. Well, that's really because they've tried to make Brock Lesnar the final boss. And when you're the final boss, you have to be slain by the next ace of the company. You have to be this one that the hero eventually destroys to free the company from it. And no matter what, they if they think it's Roman Reigns, then give him that win. That's as simple as that. That
Right.
you're gonna make Brock Lesnar the dragon, have him be slain by Roman or whoever you think is gonna be the next one, and go with that as that one. Or you can give it to a 50-year-old guy so his son thinks he's cool. That too.
When you're looking at the highest title holder, and for this instance, we're going to say brand and not promotion. You shouldn't thank anybody else, like just anybody just get it up, like let's move forward. Like you should have some kind of, if I'm making sense, like it
Yeah.
should be. I mean, I've seen comments and retweets and subtweets of put it on Kurt Hawkins for all I care. Like just anybody. That shouldn't be the goal of what the top champion
Mm-hmm.
on your show should be. It shouldn't be literally anybody. I don't give a shit. Put it on anybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's really the problem on this one, where the title should be a MacGuffin, but the MacGuffin is gone, and it goes back to your point from earlier that the show shouldn't be in a vacuum either, because Roman Reigns is the only person who cares that Brock Lesnar doesn't have the title. Maybe Braun Strowman does because he has Money in the Bank. Bullshit! Everyone from Roman Reigns down to Mike freaking Kanellis should care that Brock Lesnar has taken the title and ran off with it, and they don't get a shot at the world title. If everybody on the roster wants to be world champion, then everyone on the roster should care about this storyline.
That isn't that in the bubble. Isn't that what everybody is shooting for?
Yeah.
And it just doesn't. I said before we went live that sometimes 2 + 2 = 5. Mm-hmm. And this time, like literally 2 + 2 is equaling 5.
Yes.
Like it doesn't. Mm-hmm. It's not. Doesn't add up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because really that's all it goes down to. It's more of the point where some angles can't be done in a vacuum. Like you can have in a vacuum something like Mojo Rawley and No Way Jose have a problem with each other and Mojo won't fight Jose. That's something that it only matters to them, and it's special because it only matters to them. But if the world title is gone, the champion will not show up, and I'm pissed about that. Every person on the roster should be furious about that. And if they're not furious, it should be because they have a strong reason to not be furious. Like someone like Kurt Hawkins saying, I know for a fact I wouldn't have a prayer against Brock Lesnar, but I think I might have Roman Reigns' number, so I'm going to wait for Roman Reigns to beat him because I think I can beat Reigns.
Right. Like, give me... there's no... Give me a chance. No... Hey, baby. There's no opportunity. Like, you're... And this isn't like a dig at Roman or anything like that. There's just... It's a dig at at Brock and the championship itself. Mm-hmm. Like, what? yes, there's the IC title on Raw now.
Mhm.
That's something to fight for. You have your tag teams. They have championships. That's something to fight for if you're in a tag
Yeah.
team.
And
Well,
if it has those ones, there should be stuff like someone having two people in the low card doing nothing say, "Hey, Brock Lesnar's not here. We don't have the Universal title to fight for. Let's form a tag team so we can go after the tag team titles while we wait for it." That would also be a viable thing.
right. Like it's, and that's compounding the fact that people aren't, to some degree they are, but to a bigger degree, there's not, they're trying the whole, they've been trying. Like Brock's not here, the Universal Championship's not here, yada, yada, yada. Okay, what can we vie for? And I would love, like, the tag team championship, especially.
Mhm.
Like, okay, we can't go for this. Why don't we join forces? Pretty much like Matt and Bray.
Yeah.
Like, let's join forces and go for this.
Mhm.
Like later on, whenever Dumbass shows up or something happens and we can be singular again, we can go for that.
Mhm. Yeah. And it just goes with the same problem where if you're going to have an overarching storyline, you need to make it overarching. The NWO storyline basically made the Monday Night Wars era, but if it was only Lex Luger and Sting and only those people who cared about the NWO and everybody else didn't care, it would have just been another stable. It mattered because everybody on WCW, from Sting down to the Armstrongs, stood united against this force, and that made
Right.
that force seem so much more important.
Exactly. That kind of, I'm, you know, either shit or get out the pot.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of the two. You're killing this side and you're not doing any favors to this side.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes any kind of sense.
It makes perfect sense on it because really it boils down to everything. Everything in this needs to happen in a vacuum, and it's not even more things like that. Like when Dolph Ziggler beat Seth Rollins on Raw last week, if they had said, "Okay, he had to cheat to beat Elias, and he knew he was at his limit against him, and because he was at his limit, Ziggler was able to pull off a shocker," then suddenly that angle makes more sense.
But then, precisely. But then, as, immediately as that happens, then what? Like, is Dolph going to call out a vacant champion? Like, there's no.
Well,
Everybody is in such a close bubble because there's no.
Well, at least I can buy it for Dolph on this one because Dolph's viewpoint would be perfectly cromulent in his one because he got rid of the U.S. title in December because he didn't want to deal with mid card titles. He wanted to be the world champ or nothing. He walks away. He comes back in the shakeup. He says, "Okay, I'm going for that one." But now because the Universal title's not there, you said it yourself. The Intercontinental title's the top title on Raw. Now the
Yeah,
Intercontinental title's perfectly fine for Ziggler because now he's the top champion.
yeah, and I see it both ways. I see where he literally lie down the U.S. title and
Mm-hmm.
basically said, fuck this, I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
Like I deserve better. But then went to Raw, like, oh, I'm IC champion. Well, guess what? IC champion is the biggest champion on Raw right now.
Mhm.
Uh, I don't. Visually, it's kind of weird to see, literally lie down the championship and walk out, and then come back for another quote unquote mid card title. But that's how bad it is that it's not a mid card title anymore.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's really the big problem on it, where writing doesn't need to have amazing things. Just give us a show that makes sense, and we'll do it. And if you can't give us something that makes sense, give us something where something happens. And right now, that's the problem. The show's very good on Raw, but nothing makes sense and nothing's happening.
2 weeks ago and last week, Raws were very, very good, especially 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
That Raw was amazing.
And why was it amazing? Things happened on that show.
And I'm of the mind that because everything always leads to the pay per view, we all know that. I'm of the mind that they give things away a little too abruptly or too what's the word I'm looking for? Where's my thesaurus? I need
Hot shotting.
yeah, like it was even worse when they were doing two pay per views a month, one for SmackDown, one for Raw.
Mm-hmm.
But the slow build is few and far between, and to go back a little bit, like with the Sasha and Bailey thing, that I guess you classify that as a slow build,
Mm-hmm.
but they like the first night after the previous pay per view, we shouldn't already know what matches are coming on the next pay per view.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but at least that there is the case where it's worse, because the big problem with this brand split ending in pay-per-views is that now there is no chance for a low card feud to get onto the card, and we saw that
Yeah,
last month with the B team and Deleters of Worlds not making the card on that.
yeah, and I jokingly, but at the same time very serious, of Becky Lynch making it to the main card of Extreme Rules.
Yeah.
Like that, great. They had a great match. I say they didn't have a great match because of the timing. They could
Mm-hmm.
put them on the pre-show, give them 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But you're leaving out, and I think you said it jokingly back, Metal Mac, about
Mm-hmm.
Becky. Uh, shoot,
Yeah.
Becky and Peyton. Their SmackDown match was very quick. It's like give them some time on the main show of Extreme Rules.
Mm-hmm. Well, that
And
would just tie into the fact if NXT goes to FS1 on it. Just make the women's show already. It's time.
I fear that so much.
Mm-hmm.
You and I have talked about that in depth.
Yeah.
Uh, done right, even done right, dude, I don't know how that goes over.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is a kind of a question mark, but it seems like For everything that's a question mark, there's almost rip it off like a band-aid. Glow is a success. You got an audience for it, and it seems like the only way to go instead of just saying, okay, we have to have that. Especially since now people are starting to realize that long matches aren't necessarily good matches, and a match that where they wipe things out, but it gets 2 commercial breaks, isn't necessarily a better match than a short match that gets 1 segment that works well. Heck, even for the women, I've always been steadfast that in retrospect, the Bella Twins versus Paige and Emma match that started the Give Divas a Chance had more storyline in it than the first 3 months of the Women's Revolution combined.
Oh yeah, I won't go all in on saying I completely agree, but I know exactly what you're getting at.
Mm-hmm.
But if they announce Becky versus Peyton,
Yeah.
for Extreme Rules,
Mm-hmm.
given that they're dual branded now, that's a pre-show match.
Yeah. And that's really the problem on it, because for things like Mojo Rawley versus No Way Jose, that match doesn't even have a prayer of getting on the pre-show. That's just too small a match. And that's also the problem where, with things like, you know that Roman Reigns' match is going to be on the card, and it is what it is. You're not going to see him say, Roman Reigns is off the card for Cedric Alexander versus Mustafa Ali versus Buddy Murphy on this one. You definitely won't see him say, you know what? Chad Gable and Apollo Crews are just so talented. Let's give them 10 minutes on the pay-per-view and see what happens.
Yeah, see, I get why they're doing dual branded, behind financial reasons. I get that, but it also limits. There's a lot of quote unquote feuds that are going on that won't even happen, pre-show or card.
Mm-hmm.
They're just not going to happen. It's just for the weekly TV programming. It might lead to something later, but it's not happening in Extreme Rules.
Yep. And really, that would actually be better if they had more feuds that just were TV. Feuds like, for instance, the Mojo No Way Jose. Feuds like Titus Worldwide, Authors of Pain. Things that you know aren't going to be on the pay-per-view, but they're feuds for TV to keep the show moving along and keep things happening.
Part of me thinks that's what they're doing with the quote unquote TV feuds, is to, you're not looking for them on the pay-per-view, but you're interested in their TV feuds. Like, how does that progress? And
and honestly, there could be more stuff on that one, and that kind of works on it with Becky versus the Iconics. Isn't quite a pay-per-view match even on the pre-show, but it's a great TV feud.
Right, but if they go that route, and specifically about Becky versus Peyton this past Tuesday, and I know time constraints and how all that works. Give them a little more time. They're not making it to the pay-per-view, but at least down the line, give them some more time. Like you're trying to, on Monday Night Raw, you're trying to fill up 3 hours 10 minutes, 3 hours 7 minutes, whatever. SmackDown 2 hours flat. If that's the direction you're going, and you're also looking at the pay-per-view coming up, give what you're doing on TV and you know it's only going to be TV, give them more time than the heads coming at the upcoming pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And really, that's goes to the same point where, again, it goes to the fact that for too long people thought long matches equal good matches, and
No,
right now they just believe that if a match has two segments, then it was probably a pretty good match, and no, it's just not. It's just a long match.
right, and that's at least in my view, long matches being good to great matches with debunked a long
Yeah.
time ago. It, sometimes, oh yeah, you get invested in, but and this isn't just WWE. This is other matches, other promotions.
Mm-hmm.
The longer doesn't mean the better.
Exactly, because there's good matches at 5 minutes with entrances, and there's boring matches at an hour. Like, for instance, even if it's a historically significant match that you kind of have to watch for it, the Iron Man match between Brett and Shawn was a slog to watch in it. So
It was a chore.
yeah,
It, and I agree with you there.
yeah, it was a good match, but it was kind of a slog to watch through, and that's the same with a lot of the Iron Man matches.
And then all of a sudden, when they announced that the 30-man or 30-minute, and regretfully so, like Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell is 30 minutes? Why can't they get an hour? Like, dude, most hour long. I can name on like two, maybe three fingers of actual hour long Iron Man matches that were good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even if you had stuff like the one match, one episode things like Lucha Underground or sometimes NXT would do, it's still a case where they have things cutting in between, and it's only a 40-minute match or so.
Yeah, but the actual steadfast camera on hour long and see what worked with Omega and it wasn't an Iron Man match. It was a 2 out of 3 falls.
Mm-hmm.
Omega versus Okada, like that. It worked because it wasn't an Iron Man match. It
Yeah.
went, I think, a little bit above an hour. I said, God bless me and even my 9-year-old. He woke up like right when that match started.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't an Iron Man match. It was a 2 out of 3 falls.
Mm-hmm.
That it was. I'm just not a fan of the 1 hour Iron Man, 1 hour,
Mm-hmm.
the 1 hour Iron Man match.
Mm-hmm.
Like 30 minutes is pretty perfect. 30. If you want to go to 45 or something, but the 1 hour kind of deflates.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I, just my opinion, of course. But
Mm-hmm.
the 1 hour is a little extreme, unless done right, of course.
Yep.
But 30 minutes is pretty. They're doing hell. They're putting their bodies through hell for 30 minutes, and you can tell a uninterrupted lot of story in 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm. And really, that's all it comes down to. Where if you're going to do it, it needs to make sense that it's this length. So
Yeah, I don't get the, because there was some backlash when they announced it was 30 minutes that on Facebook and other sites, Twitter, and
well, which match is the 30-minute match?
um, come on now, don't put me on the spot. Damn it, I can't. Shoot.
Hold on one second.
It's the Dolph versus Seth match.
Okay, then honestly, it could be a lot worse on it because Dolph and Seth have already worked 30 minutes without this Iron Man stipulation. If anything, this is just hindering it.
And I might get a whole lot of flack, but it's the Dolph versus Seth 30-minute Iron Man match for the stipulation at Extreme Rules.
Yeah.
I'm 99.99999% sure I'm correct on that. And everybody, like, why not make it an hour? Why not make it?
Well, it really needs all the other ones because Extreme Rules has to show the extremeness of Alexa Bliss, Nia Jax Extreme Rules match, the Dolph Ziggler, Seth Rollins in the 30-minute Iron Man match, Bludgeon Brothers versus Team Carl No versus a tag team match, as well as Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt, Bo Dallas, and Curtis Axel in a tag team match, and Styles and Rusev, Carmella, Asuka, Reigns, Lashley, Hardy, Nakamura, and Balor and Corbin in singles matches. To the extreme!
And see, I get it, but at the same time, there's no, I see, why are you naming them pay-per-view Extreme Rules when, like, most of the matches aren't extreme?
Yeah. Yeah, this seems as extreme as all the things in the 1990s that were sold as extreme versions of themselves.
Like, there's no Extreme Rules, Hell in a Cell. Things don't compute sometimes. I mean, they compute, but come on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that really goes to this one where it just seems like a normal pay-per-view. And that's going to be the problem more than anything because most of these pay-per-views just seem like normal episodes.
Yes, that's especially with this one in particular.
Mm-hmm.
You have a pay-per-view named, for one, why we still call them pay-per-views, don't know.
Well, it's easier than saying I pay-per-views. That's kind of a thing. So
yeah, I get that part, but Extreme Rules, where the hell is Extreme? And
I think it's because they're trying to make, well, Roman Reigns is Poochie, and Poochie is kind of extreme, so.
I just, and of course I'm speaking sarcastically.
Yeah.
But where's all the extremeness? Like, and Paul Heyman's voice, like you just did. Like, I'm not seeing very much extreme.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure they can probably make some more of the Paul Heyman type extremeness. Like, maybe they have random cat fights between us in the women's matches. Maybe they have Bray Wyatt finally admit he's exactly what every Redditor thinks they would be as a pro wrestling gimmick. A big fat dude with a neck beard and a fedora who cuts promos like Raven in 1995. And that could add some extreme.
I mean, I get why they keep the name, but at least live up to a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it just seems like this is like hardcore justice where they want the image of Extreme from ECW, but they end up with that promotion up in Philadelphia.
I mean, if in my opinion, and I saw something on Twitter yesterday, I could run the company better than Vince ever could. Yeah, you could. Sure thing. Sure thing, bud. But, and it's not, like on USA or whatever. Like, it's called Extreme Rules. Bump that shit up to TV 14.
Yeah. Well, the problem with TV 14 is that most of the things that people want from TV 14 are either things that they could do anyway in TV PG or they didn't. Like SmackDown was always a TV PG show, but they were doing just as much raunchy shit as Raw was all along.
Right. But at least do something. Like since the networks come out.
Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, like even if you're doing stuff to try and make it more extreme, like heck, go with a bikini contest. You just had one of your top women pose nude in at ESPN the magazine. You can show the women in a bikini or something like that. It's not that much of a problem.
I was talking more about like blood and gore, but
Well, I think that blood and gore is something that part of me thinks that it's a problem for extreme ones, but on the other hand, I can, with the fact that we actually care about the health of our performers, we can accept that.
I've said that off the cuff. But
Yeah.
something like
Yeah, because with blood on it, we know that you're not a bleeder, you're a cutter if you're doing that. So you have to be. So any wrestler is an emo kid on this one, possibly Bailey more than that one because she's a Paramore fan.
Damn. You said about an hour ago. She.
Yep, that's what they call keeping these callbacks in humor.
But like even a package, something like if you're gonna name of all names to keep on your pay-per-view schedule to have Extreme Rules and not be Extreme Rules, just
Yeah.
I mean, I'll still be tuning in, of course, but damn.
Yeah, but that's also the case where as long as it continues to build for Money in the Bank on them, that's good because people may say that these are bad pay-per-views, but after Backlash, we know what a bad WWE pay-per-view looks like. These are at least solid for Money in the Bank, and at least this pay-per-view looks like it's going to be solid.
We do not speak of Backlash. Thank you.
It needs to be mentioned because we saw WCW 2000 level shit there.
I reiterate, we do not speak about Backlash.
Yes.
God damn, that was wow. That happened.
Yeah. That's one of the that happened and we let it happen things instead of that happened.
And again, I'm not trying to somewhere else. That's all Twitter, Statesides, or somewhere.
Yeah.
Like where this is the law before we get to the SummerSlam.
Mm-hmm.
That might have been you, actually.
Yeah.
It's just the calm before we get into the storm of actual feuds.
Yeah.
where they're actually trying to go.
Yeah, it just seems like it should be okay, but it's nothing to get excited about. And for a
Yeah.
pay-per-view, you kind of need to be excited for at least one thing on the card.
And there's not much there.
Yeah,
Like
because everything's in a holding pattern. We know that Roman versus Lesnar is not happening until SummerSlam, and in all likeliness, Bayley versus Sasha won't happen until SummerSlam, so it can be in Brooklyn.
And since yesterday was 4th of July, it's like getting a rib and it being just a little bit of meat and mostly bone.
Yeah.
Like there's a little bit there, but I want the other rib that has some meat on it.
Yeah.
Something I can chew on.
Yeah, or at least it's like having a rib that's mostly fat on, a rib that's mostly charcoal, or things like that.
Yeah.
But pretty much that's pretty much the weekend in wrestling on it. And it says something that the world champion and the U.S. champion could get on SmackDown, and the matches were so nothing that we didn't even get into them. And especially not to a pancake eating contest. So this had more for this week than we thought there would be.
Yeah, I was like, okay, this is going to be a 20-minute show.
Mm-hmm. So hopefully this is the it for the Whacked Out Wrestling podcast for this week, and hopefully it ends this time without much of a problem. So tune in on Thursdays, and get whacked out.
Whacked Out Wrestling. Whacked Out Wrestling.
For saleables.
I like how our